The text came through while I was in a meeting about cloud migration. One line, no punctuation, just, sold some of your stocks to pay off my debt, hope that's okay, love you. At first I thought it was a joke, one of those sarcastic messages Vanessa sent when she'd forget to pick up groceries or double-book dinner plans. But when I opened the banking app under the table and saw the withdrawal confirmation, the room tilted slightly, as if the floor had moved. My name kept echoing in someone else's voice at the end of the conference call, asking for an update, and all I could think was that $43,500 had vanished before lunch. I didn't storm out. I didn't yell. I just gathered my notes, told my team I'd be right back, and walked down the hall with a calm so sharp it felt surgical. Outside, the Portland sky was the color of old nickel, and the air had that damp chill that seeps through everything. My hands were steady until I tried to unlock my car. Then they weren't. Vanessa and I had been together for years. We met at a friend's birthday. She was loud, funny, confident in the way people are when they know they're being watched. I'd been drawn to that brightness. I didn't realize until later that confidence can sometimes be camouflage. She worked in marketing, made good money, always dressed like her life was under control. We moved in together 2 years ago, divided the bills down to the cent, had a shared calendar color-coded in Google Sheets. Everything about us looked efficient. Grown up. That efficiency is what made the betrayal cut deeper. I wasn't careless with money. My investments were the one thing that made me feel grounded. Every spreadsheet, every late-night budgeting session, was my way of carving out a future no one could take away. I started when I was 19, $200 a month into index funds, slow and steady, the long game. It wasn't glamorous, but it meant something. It meant control. Vanessa had always said she admired that. She'd teased me about being the old man investor, but the way she'd look at me when I explained compound interest made me think she saw stability, maybe even safety. I didn't know she'd eventually see opportunity instead. By the time I reached my car, the anger had curdled into something quieter. Not rage, clarity. The kind that comes when you finally see the shape of the thing that's been living behind the curtain. I opened the broker's app again, confirmed the missing balance, and felt the air leave my lungs in one long, controlled breath. 10 years of discipline, gone with a text? I started the engine, watched the rain smear across the windshield, and realized the worst part wasn't losing the money. It was realizing that while I'd been building a future, the person beside me had been planning her escape route through it. I didn't go home right away. I drove in circles for almost an hour, through streets I'd known for years but couldn't recognize that evening. The rain thickened until the city blurred behind it, every light stretching into a smear of gold. I ended up parked in a grocery store lot, engine running, trying to remember the last conversation Vanessa and I had that hadn't involved bills, deadlines, or meal prep. Maybe that was the warning I'd missed, the silence that had grown so gradually it blended into routine. When I finally called my broker, my voice didn't sound like mine. It was too even. Too calm. The woman on the other end, Jennifer, started cheerful, but her tone shifted once she saw the account activity. She confirmed the transfer amount, the time, the destination bank. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Did anyone else have access to your credentials, Mr. Chin?" The pause before I answered felt like admitting guilt. "My girlfriend uses my laptop sometimes," I said. "But she doesn't have permission to access my account." "Understood," she replied quietly. "I'll flag this for investigation." The call ended, and the silence that followed was heavy. I stared at my reflection in the dark window, watching condensation form where my breath hit the glass. I couldn't decide what hurt more, the money itself, or the thought that Vanessa had planned this while I was asleep beside her. When I walked into our apartment later that night, everything looked infuriatingly normal. Her shoes by the door. The scent of her vanilla candle still hanging in the air. Our cat, Pixel, wound around my leg, meowing for food. The small domestic details mocked me. I fed the cat, sat on the couch, and scrolled through our message history until I found the one that started it all. "Hope that's okay. Love you?" I read it until the words stopped making sense. At 7:40 p.m., the lock clicked. Vanessa walked in wearing gym clothes, her hair pulled back, face flushed from yoga. She smiled when she saw me, then froze. "Why are you home so early? Tell me you didn't touch my account." Her expression faltered for a split second, barely noticeable, but enough. Then she tried to recover. "Marcus, calm down. I just moved some money around. You'll get it back. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal?" My voice cracked for the first time. "You took $43,000. I was drowning, okay?" she snapped. "You have savings. I needed help. You thought you'd steal from me?" The word hung there like a dropped plate. Something in her eyes hardened. "I'm your girlfriend, Marcus. We're supposed to share things. Sharing means asking first." The conversation collapsed after that. She went to shower. I stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, documenting every word while the sound of running water filled the apartment. That night, while she slept, I changed every password I had. I stared at her sleeping face and realized the person next to me was now a stranger. I woke before dawn, the kind of half-sleep where your body is still but your mind won't stop replaying everything. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional click from the heater. Vanessa's side of the bed was warm, empty. I thought she'd gone to make coffee until I saw her phone glowing on the nightstand. Notifications stacked on the screen, email confirmations, a fraud alert, and one unread message from her bank. My chest tightened. I didn't open it, but I didn't need to. She'd realized what I'd done. The night before, after she'd fallen asleep, I'd frozen her account. The broker's fraud department had given me the option, and I'd taken it without hesitation. I told myself it wasn't revenge, it was protection. But sitting there in the gray light, I wasn't sure anymore. I wanted justice, but I also wanted her to feel the drop in her stomach that I'd felt when I read her text. A key turned in the front door. Vanessa walked in holding a paper cup of coffee, her hair damp from the rain. When she saw me awake, she stopped mid-step. "You changed the passwords." I didn't answer. Her face flushed, and her voice rose fast. "My account's frozen. The bank called me at 6 a.m. Do you know how humiliating that is? Now you know how it feels." Her eyes filled, not with guilt but panic. "Marcus, please. I didn't mean for this to go this far. I just needed a reset. One payment. I was going to fix it. You stole from me." She set the coffee down, shaking her head like if she moved fast enough, she could undo it. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." The sound of her crying filled the space, sharp and uneven. I couldn't look at her. Instead, I stared at the stack of unopened mail on the counter, credit card envelopes, all with her name on them. The truth had been there the whole time, quietly collecting dust. Then her phone buzzed again. She picked it up, read the message, and went still. "They're investigating, Marcus. They called my office." I didn't answer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You reported me?" "I had to." For a long time, she didn't speak. Then she said softly, "You've destroyed me." "No," I said, standing. "You did that yourself." She backed against the counter, breathing hard. I could see the exact moment when anger replaced fear. "Do you know what you've done to us? To everything we built?" I picked up my duffel bag, the one I'd packed while she was out the day before. "We didn't build anything," I said quietly. "I built and you borrowed." When I left, she didn't follow. The hallway smelled faintly of detergent and old carpet. As the elevator doors closed, I caught my reflection in the metal, tired, angry, unrecognizable. Somewhere below that, a strange calm began to take hold. I didn't know if it was peace or just the beginning of becoming someone else. For a week, I stayed at a short-term rental downtown, a place with blank white walls and furniture that looked rented even if it wasn't. I told my team at work I needed time off, cited personal matters, and let the emails pile up. The silence was addictive. No notifications, no shared calendar reminders, no scent of Vanessa's perfume ghosting through the hall. Just me, the rain, and a coffee pot that dripped too slowly. But clarity comes with quiet, and clarity is brutal. I kept replaying everything. The way she'd said we're supposed to share things, the flicker of fear when she realized what she'd done, the tremor in her voice when she said you've destroyed me. The words clung to me like static. I wanted to believe she'd meant well once. I wanted to believe I hadn't wasted years on a lie. But every attempt to justify her choices felt like rearranging broken glass. The broker called midweek. The investigation had moved fast. The case is being reviewed by internal compliance, Jennifer said, her voice careful. If it's confirmed as unauthorized, the funds will be restored, but there's a process. How long? 2 to 3 months. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but I thanked her anyway. After the call, I stared at my reflection in the microwave door. I looked like someone who'd aged in the span of a week, eyes dull, jaw tight, exhaustion seeping through. 2 days later, Vanessa showed up. No text, no warning. I heard the knock, looked through the peephole, and for a second, my hand froze on the handle. She looked different, paler, thinner, her eyes ringed with red. She was holding a plastic bag of takeout, and a folder clutched against her chest. I just want to talk, she said when I opened the door halfway. I don't think that's a good idea. Please. 10 minutes. Then I'll leave. Something in her voice was cracked in a way I hadn't heard before. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, glancing around like she was entering a stranger's home. She set the folder on the table. That's everything. Bank statements. Credit cards. The whole mess. I didn't touch it. I wasn't trying to hurt you, she said quietly. I was just drowning. I thought I could fix it before you noticed. I've been in debt since before we met. I hid it because I didn't want you to see me like that. You could have told me, I said. I would have helped. She laughed once, dry, bitter. You don't get it. You would have fixed it. I didn't want to be another problem you solved. The silence after that felt like a wound. Then she reached into her jacket and pulled out a small envelope. I sold my car, she said. It's not much, but it's a start. I wanted to make it right. I took the envelope, feeling the weight of it, light, too light. But it wasn't the money that hit me. It was the look on her face. She wasn't scheming anymore. She was empty. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, everything I thought I wanted, vindication, apology, restitution, suddenly felt like dust. The storm hit hard that night. The rain came in slanting sheets against the windows, and every gust of wind made the glass tremble. Vanessa sat on the edge of the couch, her hair still damp from the walk over, eyes fixed on some invisible point between us. I stood by the counter, the envelope in my hand, not knowing what to do with it. It's not about the money anymore, I said finally. You understand that, right? She nodded, but her face stayed unreadable. I know. I just wanted to look you in the eye once more. I didn't want the last time we spoke to be like that. Her voice cracked on the last word. She looked smaller than I remembered, as if the past few days had taken something out of her that she couldn't get back. I keep thinking about that text, I said. How casual it was. You wrote it like you were asking to borrow sugar. She winced. I panicked. I thought if I sounded calm, you'd stay calm too. It felt like watching someone I trusted put a knife through the wall to see what's behind it. The rain softened for a moment, the sound fading into a low hiss. Vanessa looked down at her hands. You were the only thing in my life that ever felt steady, she said. I didn't know how to stand next to that without feeling small. I wanted to say something sharp, something that would make the scales even. But all I felt was tired. I sat across from her, the table between us. You could have asked me for help, I said quietly. I did, she whispered. You just didn't hear it. For a long moment neither of us spoke. The air between us felt too heavy to breathe. Then she reached for the folder again, opening it with trembling fingers. They called me today, she said. Your broker. They said the report's been filed officially. There's an investigation. Once they confirm it, it'll be permanent. I hesitated. You're saying they'll charge me, Marcus? Fraud, misappropriation, whatever they call it. My chest tightened. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I wanted distance, not destruction. You can still fix this, I said. Tell them it was a mistake. Her smile was faint, almost peaceful. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I made it. I'll live with it. Lightning flashed outside, throwing her face into sharp relief, eyes hollow, mouth steady, like she'd already accepted her sentence. Vanessa, you don't have to. She stood up before I could finish. You'll get your money back, she said. But that's not what you lost. She walked toward the door, leaving the envelope on the table. For a second, I thought she'd turn around. She didn't. The door closed softly, and the sound of the rain swallowed everything else. I sat there long after she was gone, the city flickering outside, realizing that forgiveness and punishment sometimes look exactly the same when they're all that's left. Weeks passed before I heard from her again. By then, the city had settled into that dull, endless gray that blurs one day into the next. I'd gone back to work, half functioning, pretending things were normal. I met deadlines, attended meetings, even smiled in the right places. But under it all, there was a silence that never left. It followed me home, waited in the corners of the apartment like an echo. The envelope stayed on the table for a while. I couldn't bring myself to open it, even after the rain stopped and the light returned. When I finally did, I found a few $100s in cash and a note written in the looping, confident handwriting I used to love. I'm sorry I broke what you built. I'm not asking you to forgive me, but please remember that I did love you, just not the way you needed. You built walls made of plans and numbers. I built dreams I couldn't afford. We were both trying to feel safe in different languages. I read it 3 times, then folded it back into the envelope. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just a deep, quiet understanding that safety had always been the thing we mistook for love. A month later, the broker confirmed the funds had been restored. The account looked exactly as it had before, every number, every decimal in place. You wouldn't know anything had happened. But I did. The balance sheet was perfect, the man behind it wasn't. One evening, I took a drive along the river. The sky was clear for once, the water catching the light of the city in trembling streaks. I parked where the bank curved out, rolled down the window, and let the air hit my face. Somewhere across the water, a saxophone played faintly from an open bar door. It sounded lonely but alive. I thought about calling her. I even pulled up her number once, thumb hovering over the screen. But there was nothing left to say that wouldn't reopen the wound. Some stories end not with closure but with acceptance, the quiet kind that asks nothing in return. When I got home, I sat at my desk and opened a new document. I titled it, Start Over. Not because I wanted to erase what happened, but because I needed to see something begin again. I listed goals that had nothing to do with money, places I wanted to visit, people I'd lost touch with, things I wanted to learn. It felt small at first, then necessary. Outside, the city hummed. I closed my laptop and looked out the window, watching the lights blur against the glass. For the first time in months, I didn't feel trapped inside the story. I felt like I was standing outside of it, watching the ending fade into something quieter, something that might one day become peace. And in that stillness, I realized forgiveness doesn't always need an audience. Sometimes, it's just the sound of rain easing off the glass.